Hello, people. It is the return for the second time since COVID of the Pop Culture Comic Pod. Yes, our all comic book centric episode featuring me and Bender. On this one, we talk a little bit about comic news. We talk a little bit about a couple of sequels, second volumes that we read. And then we talk about some things moving forward that we want to work this towards in the future. And that's where the message that hopefully some comic book shops are listening to this. And if so, thank you for reading my message and following through. And hopefully you see here, just listen to the end of the episode. You'll hear some cool thoughts that I think that this version of the Pop Culture Bombcast will have in the future. That said, this episode, issue's a fun way of saying it. This episode, before we get into it on the message board, I would love to shout out once again, indieplanet.com. Go check that out. Check out really all the comics that are in there, but more specifically, Psychonauts Presents from my good friend Daniel Moeller, who was on the podcast and will be back on the podcast here in a few weeks, along with fellow author and good friend Aaron Conaway. They've got the third issue. They've got a collab coming up, and I'm excited about that. So go check that out to get the first and second issue. And then also I want to say thanks to Jim Ousley and Ben Sawyer, who my little care package for kickstarting the Butcher Queen Planet of the Dead came in this week. So I'm excited to sit down and read that. And I believe that's all I have for right now, other than the normal check out all our good friends and everywhere. And keep reading comic books. And there might be some new music following this. I'm not sure yet. It depends on how ambitious I get at editing. And yeah, regardless, there's going to be a bomb. So enjoy. Thanks.
Inviting crasher.
Yeah, yes. You're going to a wedding that you don't have a real stake in. You just want to go to Cabo.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's not so bad.
Yeah, like, everybody's like, are you guys going to go? And Rich is like, I don't know. I mean, we don't see him that often. I'm like, well, how much is it? And they're like, it's like $2,000. I'm like, yeah, we're going.
Yeah, with that, flights?
Yeah, all inclusive, Flights and everything. I already locked in the flights, so.
So it's $2,000 for flights and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's not
all
so
inclusive. Yeah, it's like it's $1,000
so
a person for like
are you
6
saying?
days.
I think have we talked about this? Are you saying in San Jose del Cabo?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's 7 miles from Cabo.
Yeah, you said that, and I hadn't really looked at all the details. I talked to you about this before. I had looked at all the details, and you're right. You're like 7 miles away from technically Cabo.
Because that's because all the all-inclusive places are in San Jose, and then the really expensive resorts are in Cabo.
Yeah. No, we're at a normal. It looks nice.
No, they're all nice,
yeah.
But it's like if you want to stay in Cabo, you don't have all inclusive, and you're also paying twice as much for not having all inclusive.
Yeah. No, I want to be able to get drunk all day and not care.
Well, let's not get drunk. Let's talk about comic books.
All right,
do that. So, once again, we're back with what is used to be the Pop Culture Comic Pod. And it is once again the Pop Culture Comic Pod, which means that Bender's with me. It's been a while since we've done a comic-centric episode.
Has it?
I think the last one we did was maybe when you...
It was just coming back we did one.
When you first came back over.
I think we talked about Old Guard.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Which is appropriate because we're going to get, we're going to get to Old Guard Volume 2 here in a little bit. So this episode is going to see us go over a couple of books. We're going to talk some comic news a little before that. And at the end, I've kind of put some thoughts in the direction I want to take the Comic Pod version of PC Bombcast. Okay. And I'll run it by you here in a little bit. But that said, we're going to jump right into some news. Really, one thing stood out to me when I was looking this week. I guess I should say this. For those that don't know, this was breaking not more than an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. Mm-hmm. Wonder Woman 1984 will hit HBO Max on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually wrote that down too. Yeah, they were kicking around based on another podcast that I listened to, releasing it next summer or doing a theatrical and HBO Max release.
Yeah. So only HBO Max.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, you might as well pay the $15 just to stay home.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to they can't sit on the movie. The movie will make them more money even if they put it out on Max.
Yeah.
Because of all the stuff that comes.
And I would assume. I mean, I think HBO and Warner Brothers have a contract together, and I would assume HBO's paying a pretty penny to get it.
Yeah, I would
at least covering their
yeah,
costs.
I mean, they've got the Snyder cut. They got this. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they're making good money, but they wouldn't release it for free if they weren't losing money by not releasing it. Because at this point, it should already be out.
Yeah,
you know?
It should have been out this
Months
last
ago.
summer.
Yeah, July or something like that.
And I still think Wonder Woman of all the so far movies is the best one.
Didn't Shazam? I think
Shazam was a lot of fun, but that's it's a different feel. Like this one had fell in line with the Snyder feel.
And again, well,
at the very end,
because the end.
Yeah,
I thought the end was the weakest part.
Yeah, it was the worst part by far
because of all the dark. It's just.
Yeah.
They don't get the bad guys right.
No.
And they don't get the battles right.
Yeah, it was very plot-driven to that point.
But they got Wonder Woman right.
They did,
she
absolutely.
herself is right. So that's big, but that's not what I want to talk about. But I do want to talk about DC a little bit because there was some rumbling on the internets here in the last few days that there is a rumor out that DC will be shut down by June of 2021.
Like the comic?
The company.
No way.
As for our comic side of it, and that AT&T is only going to keep.
Oh, okay. I forgot AT&T owed them
the movies and all that stuff. But before you scoff, because I want to break down kind of what he said. This is according to Ethan Van Sciver.
Okay.
Who, if you don't remember, is troubled artist, right-wing nut job, and the leader of ComicGate.
Oh yeah. So take this with a grain of salt.
The head cheerleader for ComicsGate. He cited an unverified source and had an inside tip, he said. And he went on to criticize Andy Corey, who is now the former editor for DC Comics, because there was what they called a bloodbath of layoffs last week at DC. A shit ton of people got
last week again, like 2 months
2 weeks.
ago.
It's been a couple months now.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
But Van Sciver went on to talk about some of the hires that Corey did, like Eric Esquivel, who was an accused sexual harasser and ended up having to fire him. He greenlit that religious satire. I can't remember the name of Second Coming. And then they canceled it due to the pressure that was coming out. Now it's found a new independent home. He also hired Robbie Rodriguez, and I want to really focus on Robbie Rodriguez at the end of this.
Okay.
Because
he's one of my favorite artists. So.
Well, you'll like him more after this.
Okay.
But there's a reason he cited Robbie Rodriguez, harassment-based reason.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll get to that. And so first off, I do want to touch on the idea that DC Comics is going on. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But I mean, and before it happened, it would be bought by Disney. That's,
or somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean,
like you mean to tell me that Warner Brothers wouldn't flat out just buy it and just do similar to what Disney does with Marvel?
Yeah, well,
I don't know if Disney could buy it. I think it would be a monopoly at that point.
No, it's comic books.
Still,
there's no such thing as a monopoly in comic books. It's
no, it's like a powerhouse, though.
Yeah, but I don't think you understand what monopoly means.
I do understand what monopoly means, but I think
you can't monopolize intellectual properties because you can always come up with new intellectual properties.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be hard for me to
they have the
get them in the same house.
I think they have the money, and I think that they could keep it as a independent world, like they do Star Wars, like they do Marvel, then they have DC, and then it would make sense for them because they could do all the crossovers and everything they wanted. Hey, real quick before we keep going, though, we do have a Melissa Jane in the studio right now.
I hear you guys are talking nerd stuff. So.
Well, yeah.
It is comic book based, but you can.
It's like your last 3.
No, it hasn't. No, it's not. It's not true.
So angry.
Yeah, she hasn't been down here, so we're allowed. But anyway, back to DC.
I like your shirt, by the way.
As in the flops getting a beer. So, Disney could pull it off.
I think they could, but
more
I think
importantly,
that's too many cards of the same type. You got to diversify your portfolio.
But at the end of the day, they're the ones with the money to pull
you're
it
right.
off over everyone else.
Yeah,
there's not another person that can do that has the stroke that they do. That's in the movie business.
Yeah.
I
know what you're
except
saying.
maybe like a Chinese studio or something.
That's what I was
Nobody
thinking
wants
as
to
an
see
overseas.
that.
No,
But,
yeah.
But that said, there are also some of the problems that DC has, in my opinion, is they come across as a touch directionless, both creatively and business wise.
Yeah.
I'm not reading it yet. I will read it. The new metal, death metal or whatever is going on.
No, I won't.
The metal story arc before was awful to me.
Mm-hmm. I tried reading it. I didn't like it.
It's almost like they just stopped telling comic book stories, and they're trying to do all this really force in this abstract or these grandiose ideas into the comic book story. Sometimes I just want to see the Justice League punch stuff, and that's not what they're doing anymore.
No.
And Luther's gotten all silly where he joined with Brainiac, and then all this stuff. I can't even think of her name, but Perpetua, this world creator who created
I have no idea who that
is. It's too much. It's like, here's what DC's doing. They have this, just like Marvel, they have this wealth of villains that they could pull from. But instead, what they're doing is creating a bigger threat. So you have the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor and those. So you create a brother for them called he was called the World Forger, and he was a badass. And so then you created some gods above them, and then you created Perpetua, who created all of them.
Okay.
I do like the fact. I think if they go to this omniverse, which is what they're directing to, get rid of the idea that infinite universes are the dark the omniverse, and it's going to allow them to tell whatever story they want, which they should be doing to begin with.
I mean, that's kind of what Marvel did with Straczynski's run on the Avengers. They killed all of the alternate universes except for 616. Basically,
was that Straczynski or was that
I think it was Straczynski. Who's writing X-Men right now? Isn't he writing X-Men?
No, Remender or not Remender.
Yeah, J. Michaels. Yeah,
it's not J. Michael Straczynski. It's Hickman.
Yes, Hickman.
Jonathan
I'm sorry.
Hickman,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Straczynski hasn't wrote for Marvel.
Yeah, I was going to say,
or in a long
I don't know why that was
since
sticking in my head, but
Spider-Man.
yeah, it was Hickman. Hickman did that. He got rid of like all the multiverses and smashed them all together.
Yeah.
It was a very drawn out, convoluted,
It's a
way
very
too long
Hickman
story. Yeah.
Very Hickman-esque.
But it cleaned up at the end.
Well, DC's not cleaning up. In fact, they're going to allow you to be able to do whatever story you want, which is fine. But what they should do is you should have the JLA universe, which is the big heroes, the big seven. And the connected people should be a cohesive story. But then it should be allowed you to tell I mean, if you remember, Joss Whedon's X-Men run did not tie into anything.
Yeah.
It just told a great story.
Well,
and that's what that both Marvel and DC are losing sight of. Just tell a great story.
Yeah, well, I'm going to push back a little bit because they do those Earth ones, I think. Like they did a Green Lantern Earth one. They did a Superman, a Bat
and
Year
now they
one,
have
or
Black
Earth one.
Label, and they have,
And then, like, they've done the White Knight. I've read both versions of that.
That doesn't fit into anything.
It doesn't fit anything. And and they're doing a Harley Quinn version of it now, which I'll read because I enjoy the art. And so far, I really thought the second version of White Knight was
I
better.
still need to read it. I haven't read it yet.
I really enjoyed it.
I mean, I love Sean Murphy, and we'll get more on Sean Murphy a little bit. So that's just. I just think that DC needs to. In my opinion, as someone who now has both apps and has yet to read anything on the DC app, I'm waiting until it goes all comics. It's just like they've lost focus on what made their heroes heroes. Well, their heroes have always been much more larger than life.
Yeah,
they don't feel that way anymore.
And I kind of stopped reading Batman. Even Snyder's run, I didn't really finish it because. Like, I left and came back, and there's, like, 14 different, like, Batman superheroes that aren't, like, Robin-esque superheroes now. I'm like, who the hell are all these people?
The Bat Family, it's too much.
I mean, I guess it's cool, but at the end of the day, I just want to see Batman beat people up.
Yeah.
I don't care about this new sidekick that much.
Yeah, take Batman and ground his stories, and take Superman and make them extra super.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward formula. Get good writers and do it. Don't... Again,
is Bendis not doing great with Superman?
I've read some of it, and it was fine. And again, DC as a whole is kind of just wore thin on me.
But Bendis is always—he's so wordy. Like,
yeah, he absolutely is.
Is he still wordy on the Superman?
Every fucking DC book is extra wordy right now. Yeah. But I do want to tie back to Robbie Rodriguez. So when Ethan went on his Twitter rant, the reason that he doesn't like Robbie Rodriguez, and he cites that they hired this guy. He accused him of being a sexual harasser because Robbie Rodriguez sent Ethan Van Sciver pictures of his anus. Which was a fuck you, is what it was.
Yeah, 100%.
You're an asshole.
Yeah,
here's mine.
That's fucking funny.
So Robbie Rodriguez is a hero for that.
Yeah.
And even Van Sciver, still a bad person.
Yeah.
Just a bad person.
Yeah. He's a snowflake.
So that was one thing. I did want to touch on one thing as I was researching.
Well, don't jump off the.
You have some news.
Well, yeah. The other thing that came out today was it's a little bit off comics, and I was going to do it before, but the Justice League trailer, the Snyder Cut came out today.
The next trailer, yeah, because they've released teasers.
It's a 2-minute long nothing burger, basically. It's in black and white.
The 50% of the movie has not been seen of his cut as unseen footage. Just 50% of the movie. So there was a lot of
there's a lot on the cutting, and they've only done 4% is new footage, and that is it, apparently, from what I read this week on...
Wait, 4% is new
Like, he shot new scenes, but it's like 4% total.
Oh,
so everything else is, like you were saying...
He was already done.
Was already done.
Joss Whedon just didn't use it.
Yeah, and it's all the money they're dumping into this is really just CGI upgrades and fixing things.
Which has massively needed to be done.
There's a lot more Cyborg in the trailer, and that's about it. A lot more Cyborg.
I'll watch it. I mean,
Flash isn't... It looks like he might not be gay, but I thought he was going to be a gay character, which I thought was cool.
Originally, they were talking about that.
But he saves a girl, and
I don't mind Flash being gay. I do have a problem with Barry Allen being gay because... Barry Allen is kind of the patriarch of the speedsters.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And if you make him gay, you kind of ruin a lot of the existing story, the canon.
Yeah.
So just make Impulse gay or something like
make
something
a different
else.
version of that.
Yeah, do something
like they did Iceman. The previous version of when they went back in the past. I think Bendis did that. Made the new Iceman gay or the old one's gay. I don't
remember.
The
new one is. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Either way.
Gay characters. It's okay.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, well, the other thing that I brought up as I was researching, if you haven't visited CBR.com of late, we're 2 weeks into a really cool article on there that is the top 100 comic book runs of all time.
Oh, really?
And they're releasing them very slow. For instance, we're 2 weeks into it, and 100 through 93 is all that's out. Mm-hmm. But I think for people that don't know, it's a good way to find something new to read that you might not know, some all-time great stuff. And I didn't put down, of the first handful, I only listed 5 that stuck out to me. And apparently the guy that compiled this, he sent out to creators, artists, people in the industry, sent out, rank your top 10 runs of all time. Mm-hmm. And so if you ranked them 1, they got 10 points. And if you ranked it 10, they got 1 point. And compiled the list that way. So here was the highlights. Coming in at 100 was Dave Sim's Cerebus run, getting 3 first-place votes, but, an epic run. And
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that.
It's the Aardvark, the famous black and white comic.
Okay. I know you're talking about.
It's really crazy. I tried reading it and couldn't get more than 5-6 issues at a time. Dave Sim really went through some things. Like you see his relationship in the letter columns go from, I just met a new woman, I fell in love, I married her, to she divorced him and cheated on him, and then he had a good year or two where his story was all about the evil that are women. And in the letter, wow. I mean, he really it was himself.
Put his heart in the page, huh?
And which oftentimes didn't make for a good comic book. Yeah. Very existential book, though. So I see why it's on there. Number 98 I listed was John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake's Spectre run, which if you ever have a chance, it's worth checking out. It's kind of what made Spectre popular in the 90s.
Okay. I feel like I read something.
It gave us stories like... they very much grounded him. What the whole idea of it is Jim Corrigan stayed himself, even with the spirit of vengeance in him, stayed himself. So almost every story is a self-contained one-off issue.
Okay.
Like one of them, it was shortly after Kurt Cobain killed himself. Mm-hmm. There was a story of a kid was going to kill himself on the grave of his favorite rock icon. Mm-hmm. And the Spectre grabbed him and showed him what it was like to be tormented for eternity to show him not to. There was also a very amazing story, one-off, with the Spear of Destiny, which is the only weapon that can kill the Spectre. And Superman gets it and ends up taking over the world. And it's all in Spectre showing him what would happen if he got something that could allow him to be even more powerful. And because there's Hitler's essences in it, so it can corrupt the wielder. And Batman even had the kryptonite. He had the kryptonite to stop him, and
couldn't do it.
No, because Superman just busts through the cave and kills him.
Yeah,
it doesn't even give him a chance.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good story. There was a lot of stuff like that in it. It's real.
Where'd that Hitler Spirit Destiny thing come from? Because that bleeds over to tons of different things.
It's been in DC for a long time.
Has it? But I think it was in Hellboy too.
I think it was as well.
Yeah.
I think it was. It's probably something that come from some
DC,
Hitler story.
I guess, yeah, because it's Constantine and all that.
Constantine's in, Oh, they're making a sequel supposedly, a Green Lightning sequel.
Are you serious?
With Keanu.
Really?
Yeah. Which
awesome.
that was an underrated movie.
I think it was
not
too.
really
Like, it's not
Constantine, but a good movie.
Yeah, it was really good.
Next was one that I also noted on here, coming in at 97 with one first place vote. Dave Michelini and Bob Layton's run on Iron Man, number 114 to 157, which was notable because that's Demon in a Bottle. That's where the drunk Tony Stark came from with all the demons. This one, I think, is the one that's worth sticking out the most so far. Coming in at 96, which to me is pretty low, The Walking Dead.
Really?
Well,
The whole
1 through 193, because it was Kirkman, and they put on the article they put Kirkman and Adler, but they should give credit where credit's due. The first 6 issues was Tony Moore, so Kirkman, Moore, and Adler should be where it should get it. It got one first place vote. I figured that would be in the top 50.
I thought so too. Is it? I guess we got to see the rest of the list, but I would say nostalgia.
A lot of great stories, though.
Yeah.
You know, I've got to. Yeah, I mean, and these are runs, so I got to think that they're going to exclude things like Dark Knight Returns because, you know, and stuff like it's got to be prolonged runs. Here's and the last one I brought up, and this is a pretty good one. If you ever, this is a tough one too. If you ever want to just check it out, it's a great book, Lone Wolf and Cub. I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce the Japanese artist and writer of it, but it got 3 first place votes, and it's 28 volumes, so it's very long.
It is very long.
It's awesome. And
it is awesome. I read 3 of them after Mandalorian came out.
And there's been a lot of things that are based on Lone Wolf and Cub, like Mandalorian and Usagi Yojimbo and stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's I'm a big Bob's Burgers fan, and there's I don't know if it's exactly that, but it's that style, that genre, that samurai stuff that Bob and his daughter are huge fans of that story, and they actually meet like an old Japanese actor and become his buddy, and it's been a running thing through several seasons.
Maybe watched 2 episodes of Bob's Burgers,
I love Bob's
and
Burgers.
I laughed.
Yeah,
I laughed.
It's replaced The Simpsons and Family Guy as like my go-to show.
It's a lot. I mean, it's those voice actors that are popular from Archer, and in fact, it is Archer.
Yeah, it is John.
I can't think of his name either.
John something.
But yeah, it's funny. What I saw was funny.
Yeah, I love everything about it. It's just the characters are pretty down to earth, but it's I don't know. It just makes me laugh. The kids are ridiculous.
Well, do you have any other news to bring up before we jump into comics?
Let's see, I did the Snyder Cut, and then the only other thing that was big that I saw is Gina Carano from Mandalorian apparently is a Trumper, and everybody wants her canceled now.
We touched on it on the last episode.
Did you? I haven't had a chance to listen. It's so stupid.
If she's a Trump supporter and she's said some wackadoodle things on Twitter, you don't deserve to lose your job.
I'm the same way. I mean, it's not like she's calling for genocide in the street.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's silly. James Woods is not getting a lot of acting jobs because he's a pretty extreme person.
No, and like John Voight put out that video.
Him, and she liked John Voight's video.
See, that's a little. John Voight's video is a little extreme because he's talking about like Democrats being Satan. That's a little much, man.
There's
take
retarded
it back
people
a little
in the
bit.
world. There's stupid people in the world.
But I mean, like so far, like I feel like Disney or her agent just needs to go walk over to her and be like, hey. Think what you want to think, but maybe just pull it in a little.
Well, they're not doing it to Brie Larson, so...
What's Brie Larson doing?
She goes hard on the other direction.
She goes hard the other direction. Yeah, you're right. So, she gets a lot of hate for it, too.
She does, but if you're not going to curtail her, you can't curtail Gina. But
that's that was my point. Like, I'm not saying that she needs to be curtailed by us. I'm just saying, like, her agent should maybe be like...
Yeah, just...
For her own self-preservation.
Yeah, see, don't lose jobs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
which she shouldn't, but you're going to.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think she needs to lose her job over whatever her thoughts are.
And here's what it is again, and we've always said this, that the loudest people are the minority.
Yeah.
So hopefully they don't bow down to that, but it will be interesting to see because usually when you do a Star Wars, like in this last episode, which was awesome.
I didn't watch it, so don't ruin it for me.
But Sasha Banks of WWE fame is one of the Mandalorians in it with Bo-Katan. And so she, she's like, I've already like exploded in followers on Twitter and I've exploded in requests and stuff because once you are in that Star Wars canon, you pretty much are never going to be broke as long as you're smart with your money because you always have autograph sessions and always. It'd be interesting to see someone like Gina Carano who's now went hard to the right. I imagine time will heal all wounds.
Yeah.
But in the immediate, she really hurt her comic. I mean, I know we're not really doing that right now.
Yeah.
But she kind of hurt it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, if not that Mark Hamill needs it, but let's say they end up on a circuit together. Mark Hamill is extremely on the other side. He's a very liberal dude and very loud on Twitter. Also retweets and tweets back to a lot of his fans, which I think is cool.
Yeah. Oh, he's a cool dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I don't see him sitting on a Star Wars stage with her if she's like goes hard in the paint the other direction.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Either way, that wasn't the point. I just thought it was interesting, and I wanted to make that point that she was. I don't think she needs to lose her job over her personal
opinions. She needs to filter herself, which is unfair too. But
I think everybody should kind of keep their opinions if they're that extreme.
We're getting to the point.
Either side.
We're getting to the point in the world where a lot of people keeping their opinions to themselves would help. Let's
not talk politics.
I miss the times of the '80s when everybody thought was quieter and we
Bill
thought
Maher
people were spying.
That's Bill Maher's like big joke is he was like, I miss like the 90s and the 80s where like I was the only one up here talking politics and you went to dinner and nobody said who they voted for.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck who you voted for.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Unfortunately, people really it's literally their flag to bear.
And
lately.
I love a good political argument, but I try not to bring them up.
I've seen you when you start drinking. You do bring them up.
I've pulled back.
Right, because you also haven't been around as many. Is it you pulled back or you just opportunities?
I've pulled back.
Well, let's jump into 2 reviews, and it's appropriate that we're doing 2 reviews because it's 2 volume 2s, and it's books that we have done on this show before.
Which one are we going first?
We're going to do Chrononauts first because I figure we're going to spend more time on Old Guard.
Okay. I would have went the other way, but all right.
But so we're gonna knock out.
Grab a beer, you want one?
Yep, grab me one as well.
Split that thing.
Sure, let's split the thing. So Chrononauts Volume 2, titled Future Shock, which is Mark Millar's follow-up to the very fun and very peculiarly optioned before it was released comic book. It was optioned to a series before the first issue ever saw print.
I mean
we still haven't seen the movie/TV show or whatever it is.
It's coming to Netflix, and that was like,
so to speak.
Yeah, that came out like right when Walking Dead was at it. Like AMC had hit Walking Dead. 2013, 14, and every comic book movie and anything out of Image was basically it and snapped up.
I think it should be noted, and I said we would touch on this. This time there's no Sean Murphy doing the drawing, but Eric Canetti, I think that's a very capable fill-in, very Sean Murphy-esque.
The only thing that's missing, and I know I wrote it down, is the chins are softer because Sean Murphy loves a sharp chin.
In fact, if you follow Sean Murphy on Twitter or Instagram,
I do.
He talks about how he's been forcibly changing his faces.
Yeah, because they all kind of look the same.
And he always patterned them after his own face. And he's like, so I've started changing nose shapes and chin shapes to try to get out of that.
And it's not. It's like it's always because I reread.
They're very angular.
Yeah, well, I reread because it's a short run. Like these issues, it's 4 issues each, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
That reads like half an issue.
Yeah, and I reread Volume 1 today after I finished Volume 2. Just sitting around in like 20 minutes, I read the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, for those that don't know, the whole thing of Chrononauts is about time traveling best friends, buddy cops, so to speak. Corbin Quinn and Danny Riley. In this issue, or this story arc, they're back, and they've been enlisted by the very Rufus looking and acting.
Yeah.
For those that don't know who Rufus is, Bill and Ted, George Carlin. Mm-hmm. In policing the time stream of sorts, every move's designed that they do to go back and kill or do whatever is to ensure a utopian future that is perfect, and that they have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And
they have a problem with policing the time stream.
The way he does it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it starts with the first Chrononaut series. They're going back in time. They figured out how to go back.
Yeah.
This one, they're trying to go forward.
Well, in the first, because they didn't know how to go forward, and he had figured it out before them.
Yes.
And with them going back in time in the first one, they essentially were just on a fun romp. And they had to be stopped because they were having too much fun. That was what was great about the first one.
That's what I think this is a good story, and I enjoy it, but it's not as much fun as the first one.
So here's what I put, and we'll get into the rating at the end, but we can talk about more story points if you want. This one, it felt like Miller wanted to raise the stakes.
Yeah.
but by doing so, he removed the fun that made Volume 1
Exactly.
so much fun.
I agree. And that doesn't make it a bad story.
He still does and still at heart, what still makes this still a moderate success is
The
Corbin
bromance.
and Danny.
It's the bromance.
Yeah, it's I've been recently. I rewatched Scrubs for the umpteenth time through COVID, and now that I've been grounded for work again. I've started rewatching Psych, which is essentially psychic detective version of.
Yeah.
I mean,
I never watched it.
I love it.
Is it too dated to watch now?
No, it's great.
Okay.
It's great because it was at the beginning of.
It's on Prime or Max. It's
It's on
one
Amazon
of them.
Prime, yeah,
Is it?
and I love it. I think
Okay.
their references crack me up. There's a lot of repetitive style jokes, but a lot of callbacks too.
Every
And
time I'd catch one, this was like pre-DVR. I know we're getting off on a thing that we always do, but I always liked it. I just never watched
Well,
it.
see, I never watched the last season, and I couldn't remember where I left off, so I just jumped on season 4. Remembered that I had seen it, but I still
Yeah, I just went through for the refresher.
and then I'm going to watch the 2 movies. So,
Nice.
But what's great about Sean and Spencer, and what's great about JD and Turk is the same thing that's great about Corbin and Danny, except they're not a black and white guy; they're just 2 white guys.
Yeah. Way to go,
Yeah.
Mark Miller.
Yeah, it's
Really
fucking-
dropped the ball there.
Well, he's Scottish or Irish, so he doesn't
kinda
know.
makes up for it
Yeah,
a
he's
little
a
bit.
minority himself.
He makes up for it a little bit by touching in on the whole white supremacy thing in here.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've told you, but I've actually swapped beer with Mark Miller.
No, really?
At Chicago at DoubleTree.
How much taller are you than?
Oh, it's 112 feet. 112 feet.
He's not a big man.
He's a short guy that loves to put away beer and arm wrestle bigger people when
Nice.
he's drunk. And he doesn't win,
Yeah,
but he
well,
likes to do it.
Whatever your kink is.
And so we saw him the next day in our VIP thing after we had beers with him at this restaurant called, I want to say, Dober Straits. And I don't even know if it's still there. But
That's the most important part of the story.
Great steak, and this amazing cake. Side note, like you said, a tangent. One of the few reasons you go to this place is they have this most amazing chocolate cake, like lava,
Okay.
and it's giant. Me and Dwayne could split it and have some left over.
Oh, wow.
And I told when we went there, and I said, my buddy Dwayne has to have this cake. He's never had it. And they go and they come back and they go, man, it takes so long for us to make this cake that we can't make it before you guys. So what they did is they bought our dinner, and all we had to do was buy our drinks and our
That's
cigars.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and I had like $40 steak, and this was like 14 years ago.
Nice.
That's like $100 steak
Yeah.
today. But anyway, that's where we saw him, and so when we saw him the next day, said, "How are you feeling today?" He goes, "I feel like wherever my table is better be close to the bathroom." That's what he said. So he was a fun dude.
Nice.
Fun dude.
That's
So
awesome.
he'll always have a place in my heart.
And this is my favorite story of his. Like, I'm not a huge Miller fan.
Well, his Planetary Authority is my favorite. His run on Authority.
tried.
was
I
just
didn't love it.
Fucking good. Yeah, you need to try again.
Okay, maybe I will. I tried Kick-Ass, didn't care for it.
I liked the first one. Did not like the second one.
I really hated Wanted. Everything about Wanted.
I like the first. Yeah, we talked about that. I think that's popped up in the past. I like Wanted.
I was digging around in the old Hoopla app, and he's got a Spider-Man run from the early 2000s. I'm going to read soon.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Miller. So, I loved his. Didn't Miller do Uncanny X-Men or Ultimate X-Men?
I think he did. I didn't
that
like
was,
it.
Oh, I love the first 24 issues were awesome.
Yeah.
And then it went like the entire Ultimate Universe went to the shitter.
Well, it got blown up, so it's fine.
It did. Yeah, it's gone. Anything else you want to touch on in the story here? I don't
yeah.
want to ruin the story for people, but I mean, it's 1, 2, 3 spoiler. Yeah, we can ruin it if we want.
Yeah, it's
Like
I
a
said-
year old or two. So
well,
you can-
like if you're going back and you're comparing it to Volume 1, because it's been a couple years since I read Volume 1, I went back. And Volume 1 is literally a Michael Bay movie in comic book form. Like, they go back in time.
I could be wrong too. Volume 1 might be one of the first books we reviewed on the first
think
Comic
so.
Pod episode.
Yeah, I think so. And, like, they go back in time. They fuck around.
Fuckery.
Yeah, I'm blanking on names all of a sudden.
Danny and Corbin.
Yeah, Corbin is the responsible one, figures out the thing, the time travel stuff. He goes back in time, realizes he can live like a fucking god, do whatever he wants, and they destroy the time-space continuum. They bring jets back to the Stone Ages, fight dinosaurs, have a good fucking time. And at the end, they're like, oh, we gotta fix it. This one, they're a little more responsible, older. They It brings some responsibility to it, and it slows the story down.
Well, it also should be noted, one of the reasons they're older and more responsible because now they're family men and married.
Well, one of them is.
One of them. And
the
that's
one's
a big
still
part of
fucking
the
around.
story.
But the other one, he's got some demons with his mom.
Yeah, which was a
passing
good
away.
part of the story.
That was a good part.
That was the most impactful, redeeming part of the whole story.
What I thought when I was reading it is the downside is the story's very predictable with utopian. This is great, but there's a dark side to this utopia.
He was clearly the bad guy from the beginning.
Yeah, and it was very. But what I did like is when they did fix it, they didn't destroy utopia. Like they left like his grandparents up there. He went, and, he figured out. Like they always figure out a way for them to score in the end. Like they're the good guys, but they make sure that they get the extra win in the end.
Yeah,
and I like that. That's realistic, I think.
If we could sum up what they are, is they're a smarter and a more serious take on Bill and Ted.
Yep.
Is what they are. They still get into some hijinks and they still fuck up, but they mean well.
Yeah.
Or eventually mean well.
And there was some fun jokes like the Asimov Island, which is the sci-fi writer and physicist or whatever.
Yeah.
Asimov, yeah, you're right. And then when he had Leonardo...
You butchered that one so bad, I thought maybe I missed a part of the story.
Yeah.
You were Asimov.
Yeah.
I'm like, awesome? Island? I don't know what that
I was trying to reread my handwriting.
Your chicken scratch.
Yeah, my chicken scratch. And then making Leonardo do cowabunga, taking a picture of him. That
was funny.
That's
that
funny.
Was hilarious.
Like those little jokes. Great.
So let's give it a review. I do want to say that I believe that we were both around that 3.5, 3.75 range for the first one.
Yeah.
I gave this one a 2.75. Not awful, still above average. 2.5 would be average. I did make a note, though. Had it been Sean Murphy art, I would have gave it a 3.
I agree, and that's... again, the artist did a very good job, but the chins aren't as sharp and the cars aren't as cool.
Nothing wrong with the art. He's great, but Sean Murphy is pretty close to a superstar. Right
he
now.
really is. I would go 2.5. Again, I think the story was fine. I think honestly, if I'm being 100% honest with the fact that their option to this, I think he's fleshing some stuff out for TV shows and a larger story and character growth. This was a character growth.
And we'll see if it leads to a volume 3, a third part of the arc.
I think it will.
Which leads us to the next book, which is going to be a 3-part book. And we'll get into that, too.
It's like Fallen Flag is the last one, or Fallen something.
Fade Away.
Fade Away, yeah.
Which I think I've even put a note in here that's clever. Old soldiers never die. They fade away, which they're old soldiers. This, of course, what we're talking about is Old Guard Volume 2, Force Multiplied. This is... once again, Greg Rucka teams up with Leandro Fernandez and brings back the story of the 6,700-year-old Andy and her teammates of quote-unquote immortals.
Yep.
I believe I've talked about this before. I can't remember. I think Rucka wrote Whiteout, which was a film.
Yes. That was terrible. The film was bad. The book was good.
Great book. The film was not. Yeah, they kind of strayed from it a little bit. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't as good. The book made the book great. But that said... Old Guard is Greg Rucka's most financially best windfall of a property that he's done. In fact, we both gave the movie, I think, a 5 out of 5. Yeah. That we loved it so much. And the first book, we'll come back to. I think I gave it a 4.5 or 5. I can't remember.
Yeah.
We loved Volume 1.
Yeah.
We sang its praises big time. I thought this one was interesting because this Volume 2. Hit on things that the movie alluded to that weren't in Volume 1.
Yep.
So that was cool. But just to briefly summarize, and then we'll get more into the story. To give you an idea what this arc is about, Andy, which is Androman. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
I don't know how to say it. I don't even try. I just say Andy.
Charlize Theron's character in the film. But Andy versus her former ancient lover Noriko, who spent hundreds of years trapped at the bottom of the ocean, drowning over and over and over, which the movie hinted on, but the series did not. The
movie didn't even hint on it. Like
they
showed
hit
it on it,
no,
and I actually went back and reread Volume 1 because I was like, I missed this.
It's not there.
It is one panel.
Yeah,
and it is literally a blip. That's it.
And this issue is also, to me, came across as more of a study on how to mentally break an immortal who's kind of the perfect warrior and a great leader in Andy. That's what this whole volume's about, breaking her emotionally, Noriko, because it's Noriko versus Andy, and a spoiler, by the end of it, Andy ends up joining her.
Yeah, I did. I didn't. This is a bridge.
Bridge
and I
book.
don't
yeah.
care
This is
for
Empire
bridges.
Strikes Back.
I don't care for bridges.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's talk about the story a little bit. There were some great moments.
There are some great moments, but I think that one in particular is when Booker and the FBI agent are figuring things out, and he's like, "Look at all this blood. This doesn't make any sense."
My note is of Booker. This was the Booker show.
Yeah.
Here's something Volume 1 did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about the cop. I missed on. It is a Booker show. This is Booker's redemption.
Yeah, which was so good because here's my thing. In Volume 1, I did not come out of there sympathetic or liking Booker whatsoever.
No.
The movie made me like Booker. The guy that played him was awesome. I felt for him more in the movie. I was like, oh, and when this one came out, and he
Really?
yeah, I liked him in the movie more than I did the comic, and that was the only part of the movie that I liked better than the comic was Booker. The guy that played him was just
no, and I 100% agree with you. Like Booker in the comic, he's kind of an ugly looking dude.
Yeah.
That's just the
he
the
just
guy's
turns
style,
on him.
Yeah.
And I didn't really because when I read the comic, like the gay couple and what's her name, Niall or Nellie or how
Niles is the new one.
Yeah, and all those stories were so great. I thought Booker was just there to be the bad guy, so to speak, in the comic.
I Booker's turn in the first volume was easy to recognize.
Yeah.
But I thought Booker had a pretty decent story arc in the fact that like he gives Niles a story of why you leave your family
he had
behind.
great moments. He had great moments.
And I think at the end, his redemption arc was he was just owning his mistake, and I get that. And what this volume 2 does, spoiler alert, is he owns that mistake and redeems himself way before the 100 years
By not
not
selling
talking.
them out. Not selling them out when he should have. I mean, when he
by all rights. I mean, anyone else would have.
Booker became. He became to me, and I get all the stuff you're saying in the first. Because I'm not demeaning how good he was in the first one. I'm just saying whatever the actor brought to the table in the movie,
100%
made me love him.
Yeah, no, he was very good.
And this volume 2 made the comic catch up to what I liked about the movie.
Yeah.
We saw his. I put on here my main thing. The biggest moment of this book for me was his exile being cut short due to the abduction by Noriko and not selling out the team.
Yeah.
Another spoiler alert. Remember, this is a spoiler, and this might impact the movie. So the next movie, Niall essentially asserts her leadership over the team.
Yeah.
Which is kind of big because there's some very smart people on that team.
Yeah, she just jumped like 3,000 years into the knowledge.
It's just like she's like, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
But she is the only one in a very fast-changing world, so it sort of makes sense.
She's awesome, too.
Yeah.
Her character's awesome.
Yeah.
Everything this book has done so far, these 2 issues, whereas Chrononauts was kind of a letdown for us, and we'll get to the rating in a second. This one, if it's a letdown in a way that an episode of Mandalorian's a letdown.
I don't know.
It's still a fucking
I
great.
Disagree.
You didn't like this one?
I liked
but you
it.
don't like
I didn't
the bridge.
love it. I don't like a bridge, and I felt so. I liked Copley, which is the guy who turns on him in the first one, who turns him into the agent
cop,
or whatever, the cop. I liked his, and they kind of addressed it in the movie.
The movie summed up what this book was about in like the last 5 minutes of making him.
Yeah, so like he tells them like, oh, you saved this person, and they went on to be nuclear physicists. You know, they did all these different things. This doctor saved thousands of kids, and you've done all this stuff. And Andy, the whole time in this story, is questioning her why she's a warrior and this and that. And then this guy gives her all these reasons to not be a warrior, or why she was a warrior, and the good things that she's done, and not to focus on it. And I thought it was kind of like. It just didn't mesh as well to me. And then the slavery thing was just kind of forced, I thought. I didn't care for that as
I could
much.
see where it would feel forced. You know what, though? It makes sense.
I just don't think it does.
Well, you live that long.
No, it makes sense that she would own slaves. Yeah, that part makes sense.
Yeah.
I just think, like, the outrage was just... It kind of felt easy, I think. And I don't know. Like, that just feels like an argument that you would have and they'd get over it in two days, you know? Not like a, I'm going to go join the other side kind of argument.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
And that was the only thing that really bothered me about it. And the bridge thing.
I still liked it. I still liked it a lot.
Don't get me wrong. And I did really enjoy it.
It is interesting to see that in the comic we still have not been revealed, and it's not been revealed because it's not a point of the story. Andy's still not mortal. Where in the movie, by the end of the movie, she's mortal.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that in Volume 3, I mean, these stories have to end with Andy's death.
Yeah, and Greg Ruck is writing both, so.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, and it has to end with her death because she's, as we know, the oldest, and it's time.
Yeah.
It's time.
And she wants to be done.
And to me, correct me if you don't, I mean, maybe you don't feel this, but I kind of feeling you're going to do, it feels like whatever the plan is that makes these immortals, whatever is the grand design that turns someone immortal, does have a plan, and I think it's for good. That's why we see when Andy does something, it usually works good. But it gave us so they asserted in Niles' character is another strong leader, which is allowing Andy to be able to finally die. It's like there's a clandestine destiny behind the whole thing.
And that's kind of what I thought at the same time, because Noriko says, she died, and that is a good scene in the book where
the movie and the book, reading that makes you feel claustrophobic.
Yeah, when she throws Andy in, spoiler alert, when she throws Andy in the trunk and leaves her down there, and she just keeps dying, and then she has to figure out how to get out, spectacular. But Noriko says, I died all those times, and you think I would have just died for good one time, which to me means that I'm assuming in the mythology, you have to die in a blaze of glory. Like, you have to go out in something that means something to you. And Andy's been alive so long that none of these battles really mean anything to her. And this last one is the reason that she's going to be alive, because I reread a synopsis real quick, and I didn't catch it, but Noriko's apparently, took over the other the scientist guy's work, and she's making false immortals.
Yeah, she's trying to make them. So which is going to be, you got to assume Volume 3 is an army of immortals against each other. But there's got to be a hitch to the false immortals.
Yeah, I mean, something's wrong.
It's got to be like a fucking shot that they have to take every 24 hours or something to help them.
Mad or go berserker
something
or
that they've got to be
heads
reliant.
Explode.
So, which... Still, also, by the way, the couple, I forgot their names. I didn't write it down.
Yeah, me too.
Still just an amazing part of the story.
They're definitely the rocks. They're
the heart of the team.
Yes.
Because they love each other so much, and they have... And what's good about it, and if we were to do a regular episode, I would spin into a new show that I just recently, Missy and I just finished watching. I'm not going to jump into it too much here, but we just recently watched Schitt's Creek.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And one of the things
you finished it?
We did.
Oh, man, you're faster than me.
One of the things, when Missy has it in for something, we do it. Yeah. But one of the things about Dan in Schitt's Creek, Dan Levy's character... and his husband, spoiler in the show.
Yeah, you're spoiling it, man. I'm not there yet. I know.
But what's great about that show, and it's what's great about those two characters in this comic, is it could be real easy to write the conflict.
Stereotype it.
Well, not stereotype, but write the conflict that comes with what they are. Mm-hmm. But instead, in the book, doesn't make any excuses. It doesn't extrapolate on why. These two have just loved each other for hundreds of years.
And they don't need to explain it.
Unquestionably.
Yeah.
And without falter. That's a story that doesn't get written because in most cases it's boring.
Yeah.
But in Greg Rucka's hands and this world he's created, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And we talked about it when we reviewed the movie however many episodes ago, but when he said I'm going to write this, but that speech in the first one
change it.
Cannot change a word.
It was the best part of the movie,
and it was great. You felt it. It was the actors were spectacular. They sold the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a well done.
And that's what I like about those characters. To go back to it is they shift with blind loyalty isn't really a thing. They're obviously loyal to Andy and they'll let Booker back in, but they shift with they shift to the morally. They're the moral compass. So,
they're the heart of the team.
Yeah, so when Niles is on the right side, they're going to shift towards her, but obviously they would let Andy back in. I didn't feel that Andy would bend that quick. And I'm hoping they address that real fast in Volume 3.
I think what you're supposed to, and they did a good job in the first one of talking about how you have to not love anything.
Yeah.
You have to, and that was what she's really loved this person.
Yeah. Everybody else that she's loved has died.
And this has been crippling for her. And Noriko is the
manipulative,
evil version of her.
Yeah.
I mean, Andy really is a great leader.
She really
that
is,
was
yeah.
why her fall from grace in this was kind of the theme of this issue.
Yeah, I didn't care for the like I said, the slavery thing. I felt was like, that's stupid outrage. I thought.
It's forced. How about that?
It was a forced
How about
outrage.
forced?
Yeah,
I think you said that a while ago too. Well, let's go ahead and give it a rating on our Universal Untapped scale of 5 point as the most. What'd you give it? I went first last time.
I'd say 2.75.
Oh boy, you went way low on it.
I just didn't love it. I didn't.
I still went 4. I still enjoy it. I think the art is unbelievable.
Well, if I'm going art, then it's a 3.5.
The whole book as a whole, but
Fine 3.
You don't change my count. I just think that there's. I
was going pure story, so I'll give it 3.
And even if the story was a letdown comparative to the first, which I agree that it is, it's still the world as a whole is so appealing.
Oh,
to
it is
me.
good. My other complaints,
like John Wick's world, I
Yeah.
could always watch something.
Oh yeah. I 100% agree. My other complaint, real quick, is that I didn't like that Niles let that FBI agent know that she was an immortal. Like, if you're gonna let somebody know, let it like a nobody know.
You know, another thing we could be looking at too with, and I'm not saying, and for me it didn't hurt the story, but what could maybe have reared its head and hurt the story for you is when he was writing this, when he knew the movie was being made, and he felt like he had to rush a couple of plot points that otherwise maybe he could do a 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
It feels very much like he's writing a trilogy now.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's okay.
I hope it goes out with a bang.
Yeah, me too. Because I mean, I would own the whole. I'm going to buy the whole thing and read it all.
Like it ends up on an epic battle, and this artist of Fernandez Alexander, or what is it, Leandro.
There you go. Good job.
With his art would look good. Noriko and Andy fighting on top of a mountain kind of at sunset, and it ends with them stabbing each other and dying together, officially. Like holding each other with swords through them.
Just finally getting peace or whatever, the sun coming up.
And the sun going down or up as they're silhouetted.
It's
dying.
their Rogue One. Like they're holding each other on the beach and shit blows up.
Except they kill each other, and it finally kills them for good.
Yeah.
If that ends up coming close to that, we're fucking great at this.
By the way, the artist, whatever his name is, when he
Leandro
shoots people,
Fernandez,
like his like negative space when like they're shooting people and like his lack of color in the blood and everything, just fucking chef's kiss on that, man.
He takes a lot. You can see a lot of the Frank Miller influence and the Pedro Rizzo influence on him. Not Pedro Rizzo. Yeah, Pedro Rizzo, who wrote all those all the like 100 Bullets and all that stuff. Eduardo Rizzo. Eduardo Rizzo.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, wrote all that. You could see the influence and the styles on them. And that's what I love about it, because I love the 100
absolutely.
Bullets. So let's go to what the what I'm calling now for the last segment of the show, the letter column.
Okay.
And that's with the kind of the quick hits that we want to talk about. I'll let you go first before I only brought 2.
Okay. We've talked about the ones that I'm reading right now. The only one I'm going to talk about is I went back and this is one of the, when I first got back into comics, you got me back into comics.
Yep. Being your neighbor.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off.
Of course I'm not.
I got you back into comics, and your wife brought Hayden into this world. It's basically
perfect.
Yeah, they equal out.
Yeah, I 100%. Yeah. But I went back and I'm rereading. I didn't finish the whole thing back in the day, but I didn't have kids. But I'm reading Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon's Day Tripper.
Oh yeah.
And now that I'm a little older, I'm about 10 years older than when it came out. I have several kids now. I mean, I had my Jeremiah, but it wasn't. I didn't feel my mortality, I guess, at 25.
Yeah, you weren't a dad yet.
Yeah.
There, you were still uncle.
Yeah, I didn't feel the mortality, and I'm loving it. At the end of every, I don't know. For those of you who don't know, it's basically about a writer who struggles under the weight of his dad being a more famous writer, and at the end of every chapter, he dies, and then the next chapter picks up. Had he not died. And then it goes on, and another chapter happens, but then he dies again, and it just grows. Like the first issue is him dealing with his, struggling under the weight of his dad, and the next issue is dealing with a bad breakup in love, and it just keeps moving on, and it's really heavy. And Gabriel Moon and Fabi.
I think I only read the first volume, isn't it? Or is
It's just one volume.
It is
It's 10 issues, though.
I bet I only
It's
read
very long.
I must have still had the store, and
Yeah.
I probably
You
read the
did.
first
You
couple
did.
of issues, and that was it. I should go back and read it because for a couple of reasons. One, I like Moon, but Gabriel Ba's art is so fucking great.
It is. And, like, it's just.
For those that don't know, Umbrella Academy is where he got notoriety
and
from.
And Casanova Quinn.
Casanova, yeah, Quinn.
And his brother. But it's heavy. It's not superheroes, but it brings you down. Like at the end of the night, it's kind of weighted. It makes you feel like the weight of life, and at the same time, it's just interesting. I love it.
Yeah, I'll check it out too. I'll read it too, and maybe we'll give it a whole review once we're all the way
definitely.
through it. One of the things I brought is something I need to read the final 2 issues of it, but because of the Marvel app, I've been reading Monsters Unleashed. And it's
that?
for 2 reasons. It's giant monsters of the Marvel universe all
Okay.
attacking. It's Marvel's Pacific Rim,
Okay.
so to speak. It's not like a complex story. It's not even something
it doesn't
great.
sound like it. It's
It
Marvel
kinda,
Zombies.
It kind of centers around K-E-I, K. I don't know how you pronounce it. This kid can draw these monsters, and that summons them.
Oh wow, that's
and
cool.
And he knows he's doing it, but he doesn't know to what extent and how bad
Mm-hmm.
it is. But the 2 reasons I started reading it, well, there's a bunch of reasons for the art. There's a lot of great art in it. Arthur Adams, one of my all-time favorite artists in history comics, does a lot of covers and stuff for it. But the 2 reasons are, one, I like giant monsters. We've talked about it on this show. And the other thing, and this is going to get a little wacky, but bear with me. And I know, and for anyone out there that thinks this is weird, you also have one of these. You just need to admit it out loud. Sometimes there's a fictional cartoon character that you kind of crush on.
Oh yeah.
And for me, it's Elsa Bloodstone from Next Wave, who's also a key member of
that
this.
makes 100% sense.
But whatever it is
Mine's
about,
Black Cat.
yeah, there you go. Especially the way she was drawn in like that
Like
Kevin
by
Smith
Chow. Yeah.
Frank Cho and
Yeah.
but yeah, Elsa Bloodstone is at the top of my fictional character list up there, man, and she's a big part of this. And I just like her story. She's a vampire hunter.
Yeah.
She carries the double shotgun.
Yeah.
She's
like from a family, like a legacy of vampire, like
legacy.
monster hunters or
yeah,
whatever.
she would be a great character to just drop ship
Yeah.
into the Mignolaverse.
Yeah.
And but I love her. So it's fun. The stakes aren't very high because the story is kind of wonky.
Yeah, it's like Next Wave. There's no stakes in that.
I mean, like Fing Fang Foom.
Yeah.
And the classic. It's what it is. There's a bunch of new monsters that are attacking, and the classic monsters from old school cheesy Marvel are helping defend. And I mean, you got a giant dragon, Japanese looking dragon with the purple underwear on fighting. I mean, it's fun.
Did you ever watch that Colossal movie with Anne Hathaway?
Oh, where she was a
Jason
drunk?
Bateman? Yeah, where she was drunk and like every time she'd get hammered, like a monster would show up and destroy Japan.
It turned out to be this weird allegory about spousal abuse.
Yeah. Wasn't spouses, but yeah.
Yeah. Or but
it was friend abuse and
all that stuff. Yeah, abusive relationships.
Toxic
How about
masculinity
that? There
was
you go.
the real problem.
All of that. Yeah. That
it
was a
good. Like I enjoyed the shit out of it.
Really
the
good
end was
movie.
a twist, and I'm like, man, this is a lot heavier than I was expecting.
Yeah, really good movie. You got any other news before I jump into the last thing I want to talk about?
No.
Well, so going forward, and what I'm going to do after this, I'm going to type up a nicely worded message, and I'm going to send this episode along to a significant amount of comic book stores in the St. Louis, and even some old ones that I know from the Kansas City markets and stuff. And I'd like to do a comic book themed episode once a month, whether it fits into the rotation, whether we find an extra one to do it. And I would like to bring in a comic shop owner.
Bring in, or should we go there?
Well, in the world we're in right now. Yeah, that's true. So, and even if like we can't do it together, like if it works out, sometimes I just interview them and record it, and then I just splice it in at the end.
Yeah.
But my thought is that we would zoom in and interview a comic shop owner, allow them to talk for as little or as long as they want, let them talk about how they're coping in the world of COVID, being a comic shop, any recommendations that might pop out, where they see the market going, pains, excitements of the job, anything they want to talk about. And I figure my thought is we would do a different one, profile a different shop each month. And I'm going to put this out there we can go as far, whoever is listening to this in other states, if you have a comic shop that you love, we'll do them.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be Missouri. It doesn't have to be St. Louis, Kansas City, Arkansas. It's going to be wherever. And we would do, a different one a month, or we'd focus on the same guy for a while if that's the way it panned out, depending on their level of interest. But I'm
Yeah.
going to reach out. I'm going to send that out to the world. And so these episodes might get a little longer because
Yeah.
they might go 10, they might go 15, they might go 20, they might go an hour. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might be the whole episode. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I've been trying to buy more trades again, here and there. Like I love collecting this stuff. Like I'm gonna buy Chrononauts Volume 2 and all that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to buy it on Amazon. So I've been trying to find, especially in this pandemic world, I've been trying to find like local comic shops that
Yeah.
also have an online marketplace and buy them from them.
Yeah,
I don't care
Apotheosis
about
does
paying
a good
enough- Yeah,
job
they
before
do.
it. And they're probably right now, and I'm not saying that they're the best comic shop in St. Louis, although they do a really good job.
Their
I'm saying
social media is the best.
They're the most vocal. They're
Yeah.
the ones that are figuring out in this world how to keep it going.
Yeah,
That's what
like
they're
he
doing.
was delivering comics in
Martin,
the beginning.
yeah, he's
I don't know
awesome.
if he still does. I'm assuming
because
like,
they have the window.
now
They
that-
put in a window, drive-up window,
Yeah.
walk-up window.
But once the lockdown happens again, I'm sure he'll start delivering again, or whatever he's got to do to stay
Which
alive.
for
He's-
St. Louis, it's happened.
Yeah.
It's at round 2.
St. Louis County, yeah.
Yeah.
But we live in St. Charles County where it's live free
Fucking
and die.
Wild West, baby.
Yeah.
So that's. I think that could work. I think it's going to take a good solid day or two of sending messages out.
Yeah.
And rallying our listeners, because I know we've talked about this before.
Twitter's a powerful tool, man.
We've talked about this before. The comic book episodes have been our biggest episodes. Yeah, and especially when we review the years. And I would like to go back and do that, but
Every once in a while. Maybe we should do like a...
I'd also like to bring in a comic shop person to talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
yeah.
years
That'd be
and
awesome.
stuff and do that. But yeah, that's my thoughts. That's kind of all I had for this episode.
Yeah, me too.
I think we nailed comic books as a whole.
Yeah.
For this episode,
Two solid books. I didn't love... They weren't as good as the originals,
not
but
as
still
both.
fun.
That's the theme. They were not. We agree with that. They are not as good as the originals.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a sophomore slump for both of them, but they were still fun.
I do feel like Old Guard sets up a third arc better than Chrononauts does. I don't
I
know
agree.
where Chrononauts would go, but I just feel like since it is option, since it is going forward, it's probably going to be a third arc.
I think so.
Yeah,
It's got to be wonky, though. It's got to be.
It's got to be crazy. Yeah.
Like, it's like their kids do
It
something
doesn't
stupid.
have to be. You brought up Casanova crazy. The first book, Casanova, was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The second was good. The third was. I got a little trippy on it. I was like,
don't-
what am I reading?
I've read them like several times, and I still have no idea what happened in
Yeah.
like the third or fourth book.
The
I'm like,
first,
what in the fuck is going on?
The first story arc is about it.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
And then I don't do enough drugs to follow it
Yeah,
from there on out. But
yeah.
I think that's it for the episode. No one else
All
is
right.
in on us, so you
All right,
just.
everybody, hold on to your butts.
And I'm gonna play the music.